Today we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do to make him want you back after a breakup. But if I'm going to be honest with you, too often when I do these videos or write articles or do podcasts, I kind of feel like I'm being derivative. I'm talking about the same things over and over again. I talk about the no contact rule or text messaging and things of that nature. So I thought kind of an interesting way to approach this topic was to not really hear from me at all, but to hear from real people who have gotten their exes back. Now, one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that anyone who purchases our ex-boyfriend recovery program gets access to this special private Facebook group. In it, you can interact with other members going through a breakup, you can get partnered up to kind of help each other through the breakup, but most importantly, it's a really great way for me to communicate with my customers. And what originally started out as just a fun idea to have a Facebook group quickly evolved into something much more valuable. Now we learn mostly from the people in that Facebook group. We're learning what's working, what isn't working, what to say, what not to say, everything you can imagine, because we're getting thousands of members who are going through breakups telling us what is working in their situations. And so today, what I would like to do is pull 5 real-life success stories from our Facebook group and tell you what is working in the real world to get your ex back. But I want you to stop for a little bit. If you're new to this process and you're still kind of in that limbo area where you're trying to determine whether or not you should be trying to get your ex back or not, I've got a great resource for you to utilize. I've put together on my website, exboyfriendrecovery.com, a special quiz that's designed to tell you what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back so you know whether or not you're wasting your time. Now, if you want to take this quiz, it's free. It should take you no more than 2 minutes to complete, and all you got to do is just simply look in the description link of this YouTube video and click on that link that you see there. It's that simple. Okay, let's get started and talk about the real life success stories and what's working to get him back. Trend number 1, the no contact rule works really well. Now, this is something that I've been talking about for years. The no contact rule may seem like the original gangster of getting your ex back, but it still holds a ton of power today. Just look at what this success story had to say about it. After my ex broke up with me 2 weeks ago on April 5th, I can say that we are now back together. He initially broke up with me because he was moving back to Sweden with his family for college and was having doubts about the long distance and said he wasn't ready for a relationship. There were no warning signs before he broke up with me, and he immediately blocked me everywhere. I kept messaging around the block for 5 days until he angrily said, "Leave me alone, and I don't want to be with you." I then found this program, however, and went into the no contact rule after that. It was 6 days into no contact when he reached out and apologized for his behavior. We agreed to talk as friends, and he said he wouldn't be ready to date for a while, but 2 days later he revealed how much he missed about our relationship. So when we're looking at this particular success story situation, there's really 2 things I want to note. Look how quickly the no contact rule worked for her in her situation. Generally speaking, we recommend 3 different time frames: a 21-day rule, a 30-day rule, or a 45-day rule, depending on your specific situation. But what's really interesting is we've started to notice that the no contact rule can get really quick results. So that means if your ex gets back in touch with you maybe 14 days after you start a no contact rule, basically saying, "Hey, let's talk, I miss you, I want to get back together," it is worth breaking the no contact rule to have that conversation. But I will even admit that what we're reading in this particular situation is a bit on the rarer side. But nevertheless, you're going to find out as we look through all of the success stories that I'm going to be showing you today, almost every single one went through a period of no contact. It's just I wanted to highlight this particular one because it worked extremely well and extremely quickly. So if you've ever been on the fence about whether or not the no contact rule works, look no further than what I just told you. Trend number 2, conversation mediums matter. So as you know, one of the things that separates me from my peers is my concept of the value chain and the value ladder. Basically, it's all about when and where you have your conversations with your ex after a no contact rule is over. And that's something that the next success story that I'm about to talk about really highlights. Hello ERP, I got him back. It's still the early days yet, but we transitioned while on vacation from texts to calls to video calls, and he eventually told me that he loves me and missed me a lot and thought about me the whole time we weren't talking. So I really wanted to highlight that particular sentence in that particular success story because it really shows that she took my concept of value changing in conversations to heart. So when and where you have conversations with your ex do matter. So you'll also notice that she also did a no contact rule if you read a little bit more in depth on that success story. But what's interesting is after the no contact rule is over, you still have to go to work. You still have to transition and build value in the text message stage. You have to transition from text messages to phone calls to video calls to in-person interactions. And you'll notice that she was doing this stair-stepping method almost perfectly and it was working. Seems pretty crazy, right? But you'd be surprised about how everything fits together almost seamlessly, and it's all built on the foundation of basically trend number 1, the no contact rule. Trend number 3, achieving the ungettable mindset. So perhaps what separates me from other breakup experts is the fact that I don't just tell people to do a no contact rule and wait around for their fortunes to change or turn. I actually tell people you need to be extremely active during the no contact rule. And in fact, you shouldn't be even focusing on your ex at all. This is all about focusing on you. And as I started developing this concept of focusing on yourself, something really interesting happened. I came up with this other concept called the Ungettable Girl. Basically striving to become the girl that every man wants but no man can get. And that's something that you're about to hear about in the next success story. So my ex told me yesterday that he wants us to get back together. Ever since I broke my 21-day no contact rule by 2 days, my ex has been texting me every couple days saying that he couldn't stop thinking about me and all the UG things I was posting. By the way, UG is just shorthand in our group for the Ungettable Girl, but there's really 2 things that I want you to notice. Number 1, again, the no contact rule is this consistent presence, and also she broke it a little bit early because he basically asked for her back. And number 2 is he asked for her back because he started seeing all these really amazing things she was doing and maybe grew a little regretful that he had broken up with her in the first place. And that's the point. During the no contact rule, it gives you the chance to become the ungettable girl. Most women think of it like, oh my God, I'm getting all this time to myself. I'm going to get super depressed and think about him all the time. But the successful women do the exact opposite thing. They almost make him regret the decision to break up with them by doing all sorts of things that makes him feel left out. That's part of being an ungettable girl. Now, if you want the longhand version of what the ungettable girl is, I've actually recently written a book on Amazon called Ungettable, Becoming the Woman Every Man Wants. It's only about $19, so maybe check that out on Amazon if you want sort of the start to finish game plan to become ungettable and sort of the mantras to live your life by. So let's talk about the next trend. Trend number 4, moving on without moving on really does work. So piggybacking off the trend number 3 with the ungettable girl, let's talk a little bit about moving on without moving on. Now, not a lot of people realize what this is, but this is essentially the idea that usually once you give up on trying to get your ex back, they magically just come back. And that's something that this success story is about to highlight. And it's the weirdest trend I've ever seen, and I've never been quite able to fully explain it, other than I feel like there's just this mindset shift when you actually want to move on and just give up on your ex. All of a sudden, they don't have you anymore, and they know they don't have you anymore, and they can sense that, and they start chasing you. Again, just let's hear what she has to say. Hi everyone, I haven't posted on here at all yet, but reading success stories, especially when I first joined, always helped. So I wanted to share my own. I joined near the end of my no contact, and honestly, I thought my case was a lost cause because he told me all the lines. We're never getting back together. It just won't work out. Blah, blah, blah. Fast forward a month later, he had not reached out at all. When I first started texting him, he seemed to respond positively at first and would become short. So I actually decided to just move on, and I didn't want to chase after someone. Well, something happened, and I had to talk to him. Since I decided to move on, I deleted his number and had to talk to him in person. It was so awkward, but I kept it short, told him what I had to, and I left. Immediately after I left, he started texting me and really opened up about his feelings. We saw each other a couple of days later, and I had no intention of bringing up any relationship talk at all, but he brought it up, apologized to me in detail about everything. Now, I know this may not seem like much, but the real important thing of what I just read you is the fact that she mentioned she just moved on. She gave up. She was happy giving up, but then she got back in contact with him. And the most amazing thing happened. He started to look at her in this new light. So when I tell people to move on without moving on, it's kind of this concept. This is the exact trend we see in our Facebook group, in our comments on our website, in podcast listeners. We're seeing this happen all the time. And all I can say is, moving on without moving on seems to actually work. Trend number 5. Sometimes you going on the rebound works too. So what do I mean by that? Well, one thing that we've also noticed when we looked at our success stories, and again, I'm about to read you just one, is that when your ex moves on to a new girl and you move on to a new guy, some weird stuff starts happening. Usually though, what we're seeing is if you actually start dating other people, your ex will start to take notice of you all of a sudden. So it is something that we actually try to recommend to our clients, even though it's really hard for them to do. Here, let's hear from one of them right now. Me and my ex broke up in May, and it wasn't easy to say the least. We worked together as well, and my boss even put our desks next to each other to see if we would have drama. Cruel, I know. It was rocky for me at first. I fell into depression very rapidly, and after some time I began to pick up. I made new friends, found new hobbies, and each day I grew stronger. And he could see that every day through work and social media, even to finding out I had been on a date. We slowly became friends again, and last night he asked me on a date. And this is what we both want. We both had rebounds during the breakup and decided it wasn't what we wanted. The best thing anyone can do is work on yourself. The positivity can do more than you can imagine. So, why does moving on to someone else, going on the rebound with both your ex going on the rebound and you going on the rebound, seem to work? Well, I think it ties directly into the grass is greener syndrome. Most of the time when someone breaks up with you or you break up with someone, there's one primary reason. You think you can do better. But sometimes when you go out and see if you can do better, the next person just doesn't measure up. Sometimes it's important for your ex to move on to someone else. And sometimes it's important for you to move on to someone else as well. But what I really have seen is a lot of times when our clients go on a date with someone else, they don't like going on the date, but their ex takes notice. This is why our jealousy techniques, while subtle, can be so effective. Hey, I want to thank you for getting to the end of this video. Don't go yet. There's one more important thing that I want to tell you, but before I tell it to you, make sure you stop over to our website and take that X Recovery Chances quiz I was talking about at the beginning of the video. Again, all you have to do is simply look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on it. Okay, so what's that important thing that I needed to tell you? Well, I want you to be able to comment on these YouTube videos. We're trying our best to respond to as many comments as possible, but if you want to get in touch with me a little bit better or a little bit faster, hop over to our Facebook pages, our Instagram page, my Twitter. Try to tag me in those areas so I can get your situation in front of me. There are thousands of people trying to get my attention every single day, so find a way to stand out. See you next time.